Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Unplugged Woodworking podcast. So before I start, I just thought I'd mention that as of recording this, the wind is absolutely howling. It's really bad, the wind. Obviously there's nothing I can do about the wind. So you're probably going to hear it in this recording. As I said, there's nothing I can do about it. So I just thought I'd mention that. So, what have I been up to? I have been doing the Japanese style dovetails, which this episode is going to be about. I haven't really got a lot done, to be honest with you, because I am trying to record the process. Somebody mentioned that I should do a video, or rather asked that I would do a video on it. I thought it was a good idea, but I haven't had the best of weather. It's been raining a lot here in the northeast of England. It's been very windy, so it hasn't been great for us to do a lot of recording. Other than that, I can record it in my shed, which is like dark and dingy. The lighting's not very good, so I'm trying to get the recording done outside. I did actually manage to get a recording of one corner, but it was the pins first, then the tails after. So this was advised to us, and it made perfect sense when the guy suggested it. But I don't think that's a way forward for me. I'm going to get into that a little bit later in the podcast. But yeah, that's a reason for that. So I'm going to crack straight on. So the Japanese style dovetails, I haven't a clue what they're called. I did actually do a little search online, and pretty much when you type in Japanese dovetails, you tend to get I think it's this, is it the sunrise or the sunrise dovetails, something like that they're called. That's pretty much all you'll get. So these are, for anyone that hasn't seen it, obviously you can go and check it out. They're on my Instagram. Obviously there's links in the description on Facebook as well. These are kind of like dovetails with hound's teeth. If anyone's seen the dovetails with hound's teeth in them, pretty much like that, but instead of the hound's tooth, it's kind of the way it normally would point, with the wider edge facing towards the shoulder portion of the joint. The wider edge is actually facing the outside. So that's pretty much like the difference between the two. They actually look quite good. They look absolutely stunning, and they look very hard as well. There was a guy on Facebook. It was like a couple of days ago, and he asked if I was into self-torture. That made us chuckle. Actually, I thought that was quite funny because they are a bit troublesome to do. This is the first time I've ever tried them. So as it stands, I'm onto my third corner. The tails are cut, so I just kind of need to do the pins, and I'm going to see how this turns out. So yeah, we'll see how that goes anyway. So the strength, I want to get on with the strength. The strength of this joint is absolutely phenomenal. It's a tight fitting joint, just the nature of it. If you kind of, again, if you go onto my Instagram and you have a look, you'll be able to see what I'm getting at here. You've kind of got, if you like the pin section, you've got kind of like two triangles, and the 2 points of the triangles are pointing towards each other. So when you're putting the tails in, everything's fighting against each other. Where if you take the comparison to a regular dovetail, So when you put a regular dovetail joint together, even if it's multiple dovetails you put together, this and as tight as you get it. Now I firmly believe in a snug fits, especially with dovetails. But even so, when you get that nice tight snug fit, there does tend to still be a little bit of forward and backwards play. When you're putting the board in, there's very, very, if not any, backwards and forwards play with this joint. It's really, really super strong. I mean, like ridiculously strong. To give you an idea, a couple of days ago, I was actually in the shed. It was really bad weather, and I was like, I don't know what I was doing. I think I just fitted the second corner, and I was basically just shoving. Basically now I've got like a U shape. I am building a blanket chest, so basically now I've got like a U shape, and I was kind of just shoving that around, just to see the strength of it, and it's absolutely solid. So I stood it on its end. I really shouldn't have done this, but to give you an idea, I stood it on its end. I climbed on top of my Roman workbench and I actually sat on the thing. So one bum cheek was on the corner and the other bum cheek was like more towards the outside, and I sat on it, and it did creak a little bit, but just to give you an idea, that's the kind of, I only sat on it for a few seconds and then I jumped off it. But just to give you an idea, and this is without any glue or anything, so it's absolute. The strength is absolutely crazy. I kind of, as I said, I don't really know a lot about the joint. I don't even know its name, but I'm kind of hypothesizing, if that's the right word here, that this joint was maybe developed not to be used with any sort of glue. Obviously, I know there's quite a lot of Japanese joinery that's evolved or been designed not to be used with glue or screws or anything. And I'm kind of convinced that this is one of those joints. So, as an experiment, because I'm doing this blanket chest for myself, it's just basically going to be in my bedroom, obviously, and it's just going to be housing maybe some t-shirts, maybe some pants and some socks. I think I'm going to add like a little slide tray on the top. I'm not really a big fan of wardrobes. I just think they're big and bulky and they take up a lot of room, where I do like little blanket chests for clothes, and they were originally designed for clothes, I believe anyway, for clothes and easy to be transported around and stuff. I believe, I could be wrong on that though. So since it's for myself, I think I'm going to try an experiment, and I'm not actually going to glue the corners up. I was thinking about doing the whole build without any glue at all, so whether I do it or not, I'm not too sure. I may do some breadboard ends with the lid, although I'm not really keen on breadboard ends. I'm not really going to get into why, but I'm not overly keen on them. I still may just stick a button on what I normally do underneath, but as for the dovetails themselves, this point in time, I'm pretty much 90% sure that I'm not going to glue the thing up. And I'm just, as an experiment, I'm just going to monitor the joints. I might actually, I most likely will do a bit of an update on this. I find it actually quite interesting. The bad thing about it is, once the chest gets put into place, it's not really going to see a lot of action type of thing. It's not really going to, it'll be getting used on a daily basis, but the lid's only going to be getting lifted up. So, it's not going to be getting dragged around or anything, which that kind of would have been a bit more interesting, just to see how the joint would have held up. But I still think I'm going to go ahead with it and not glue, and just see how it holds up. So this is obviously, you're going to have wood movement and the humidity and everything. So we're coming into winter now. So it's going to be interesting to see how obviously the wood's going to be moving around. So obviously the joint should as well. So it's going to be pretty interesting to see what happens with the joint. So yeah. Where am I? Okay, so I'm going to get into the layout. So when the first time I done the layout for these, which was like last week. I done tails first, and kind of when I didn't click on it first, I didn't notice. But when I cut the tails first, after I'd cut them and removed the material, I kind of said to myself, how am I going to mark out for the pins? So I did actually write this in a post on Instagram. It's basically, I think that the post kind of went somewhere along the lines of trying out new joints. It's going to be tricky to mark out for the pins. And somebody wrote a comment. I can't remember the person that wrote the comment, and the guy basically said pins first. And kind of the way I took it was kind of pins first. Come on, use your head a little bit. And I kind of laughed, and I thought, yeah, the guy's totally right. Why didn't it occur to me to do that? But I think it's so much in the way I do dovetails now, because I always do the tails first. I don't like to do the pins. I think there's issues. And funnily enough, there was the issues kind of did pop up doing this joint as well. So, for the second corner, I did do the pins first. And don't get us wrong, the guy was totally right. It was 110% easier to mark out for the tails, but I got better results with tails first than the pins first. And ironically, this is the way I always, if anybody asks us or I'm preaching about it, I always say with dovetails, always do your tails first. So I kind of went against everything I knew, but at the same time, it did sound like common sense to us to do the pins first. So as I said, it was a lot easier to mark out. It took next to no time to mark them out. But as I said, when I was putting them together, the results weren't as good as what I'd done with the tails first. I found half of the row was hitting the shoulder, and then the other half of the row was slightly off the shoulder. And there was a lot more fitting. And anyone that listens to me podcasts, and I've talked about this, I don't like fitting dovetails. When I'm cutting dovetails, and I have said this, I'm not saying it to be big-headed. I have got to the point now where I nearly always am able to get them straight off the saw. Don't get us wrong, it's took us a very, very long time and a lot of dovetails to be able to do this, and I still don't get them 100%, but I get them quite good, and I just don't like fitting them. So when I done the pins, I was backwards and forwards, fitting, and then still at the end I wasn't happy with it, and there was like half of the row where they were coming off the shoulder a little bit, and I just wasn't happy with that. So I've reverted back to the tails first. So as I said a little bit earlier, I've cut the tails for corner 3, and hopefully today. Obviously I'm recording this the night before. I'm a little bit late this week, but so today, as you're listening to this, hopefully the weather should be okay, and I should be out recording and cutting the pins for the second one. So I'm kind of hoping, for the third corner, I'm kind of hoping that it's going to turn out a lot better. I mean, the only issue I've got with doing the tails first is getting me marks, like getting the pins marked out. Basically, it's more for the inside. If you have a look on Instagram or Facebook, you'll see it's a single curve. So you've got like a V cut out of the dovetail section, and then you've got your gap in between the dovetails, and that's just like one saw curve. So in the future, I could possibly make that saw curve, a little bit wider, because as it stands, it's just a saw curve. You'll only get one saw in it. And bearing in mind I'm using a Japanese dovetail saw, so it's super fine. It's like really thin, just to give you an idea. So what I could do would be to possibly make that curve maybe like 2 millimeters, and it doesn't sound a lot, but that 2 millimeters is going to help to get me pencil in there. So with it being so shallow, it's actually hard to see in there, and you've got to be really careful, like making sure that you get your pencil tip right into the corner. That was a bit of an issue as well. So it's, as you're going along, you've got to make sure that the tip of your pencil is always like sharp, like pin sharp, if you like. But I think tomorrow I'm actually gonna try and dig a torch out, and as I'm marking them out, I'm gonna shine a torch in. Bearing in mind, when I'd done this, the first day I'd done this, I was actually outside, so I wasn't direct, daylight. But I still, with it being so small, I still did struggle, and my eyes aren't great. So, and I think it's just where you're not having enough room as well, and obviously you're sticking a pencil in there, so you're restricting your view to start with. I think that's probably the main issue with it. I did try getting a really fine blade in there, but it just wasn't happening for us, and I'm not really a fan of using blades to mark out for the pins on dovetails. That's kind of just me. So the time to cut them, it's absolutely ridiculous. I'll be the first to say it. It's crazy the amount of time. I think I cut the pins. I cut the pins and I removed all the waste material, cleaned the shoulders up, and I think that took me, I think it was like nearly 5 hours, 6 hours to do that, something like that. Absolutely, it's ridiculous the time it takes you. Obviously, your cuts have got to be, you've got to be really, you've got to be really precise with your cuts. I did count the saw curves, and I think it was somewhere in the region, was it about like 44 saw cuts, something like that. So obviously that takes time, so you've got to try and make sure that everything's like really nice and square, especially with the pin portion. If you've done the tails first and then you're cutting the pin portion. But having said that, when you're doing the tail portion, obviously the way I've cut it, I've only used a single saw curve, as I was saying before. In the future, possibly might be easier just to go maybe 2 millimeters, but it doesn't look as good. It doesn't look as hard, So it's kind of one of them. If you start making the curve bigger, you're kind of taking away from the look of it, type of thing. But I mean, when you're coming down on that single curve, obviously you've got to really, really take your time, because if you go slightly to your left or slightly to your right, you're going to make that saw curve, like wider, it might only be by like 0.5 of a millimeter or something like that, but that's what's going to happen. So you don't really want that to happen, because if you're starting at the top, if you're cutting them the way that I cut them with a Japanese dovetail saw, and you're cutting them in the vertical position, sorry, not the vertical position, the horizontal position. So when you're cutting them at the top, so you've already cut in one direction, so you've got your saw curve. So you're cutting in the second direction, so at the top it'll start out nice and thin, and if you veer from that saw curve as you go down, it's going to widen, if that kind of makes sense. So when you're cutting that section, you've got to be like really, really precise, and you've really got to take your time, so it's, I think with it as well, you've got to have a lot of patience. I mean, I think it was more the fact that I've never done this joint before. So I don't think it was the fact that I had the patience to do, because I've got very little patience, as anybody that knows us will testify that, I've got very little patience. But I think it was just more the fact that I've never done them. So it's the same as anything. If you haven't done anything, or you don't do it very often. I mean, another similar thing was when I done the Welsh stick chair, and I done the seat without a scope. It was just with a traverser, and it just seemed to go really quickly. Whether it did or not, I don't really know. But just to give you an idea, I kind of enjoyed it, and it wasn't tedious to us, because I don't do it. I'm kind of guessing it was the same as this joint again. I will say it would be really, really good training for, if you wanted to kind of improve on your sewing, your joints and stuff. I'm not really one for saying practice your joints, in the sense of get 2 pieces of wood and practice a joint. I am more for get 2 pieces of wood, make a joint, but at the end of it, make sure you've got something you can use, if that makes sense, rather than just like get the 2 pieces of wood and then, chuck them away into the fire pile or something. Do you know what I mean? Even if you make yourself like a little box, I'm kind of more for that practice. But like I said, you'll definitely hone your sewing skills with this. I would probably recommend that you can cut dovetails like half decently before you do this, because I think you might upset yourself if you kind of can't cut dovetails and you expect to do this. It's kind of one of those. So again, with this, I would definitely say that you need some sort of specialty saw. Not necessarily a Japanese saw, although that's what I'd probably recommend. I don't think I'd recommend a Western style saw. Although I'm not saying you can't do it with a Western style saw. I've got I don't know if it's a Pax. I think it might be a Pax dovetail saw, and I think that I could probably like get some really good results with that. But the dovetail saw what I used to cut these joints, and what I used to cut dovetails with in general, I don't know what the thickness of the blade is, but the blade is like stupidly thin, and I really mean stupidly thin. It's and I do believe that's what's give us a nice crisp curve lines. So if you've kind of just like picked up a second hand tenon saw, or even a dovetail saw like off the market, I'm kind of not overly sure that you'd get away with it. I do believe as I've just said, I do believe you'll need a decent sort of specialised saw, some dovetail saw, something like that. I could be wrong. That's just the way. That's just my trail of thinking, just with the experience I've had with it. And And by the way, I haven't had a lot of experience with this sort of joint. As I said, this is only like the first time I've ever, like last week was the first time I've ever cut the joint. But I thought it was quite interesting, so I thought I'd talk about it today. So I think I've pretty much covered what I wanted to talk about. Bit of a short one today. So if there's anything you want us to talk about, drop us an email, leave us a comment. I think that's pretty much it. Again, if you'd like to support the show, there'll be a link in the description, so please do so if you feel that way. And until the next time, I shall speak to you guys later.